In 1956, Detroit, Margaret stood in her small kitchen every evening and cooked dinners her children still dream about 70 years later. She made meatloaf with a sweet ketchup glaze that caramelized in the oven. She baked chicken pot pie with a golden flaky crust. Every single meal cost less than $2 and fed a family of 6 until everyone was satisfied. Kids cleaned their plates and begged for seconds. Today, those children remember the rich, savory flavors and the warmth of sitting together around the table. These 30 forgotten childhood dinners tasted better than anyone remembers because of simple ingredients, patient cooking, and a mother's love. Meatloaf with ketchup glaze and creamy mashed potatoes became the Monday night dinner kids looked forward to all week. The sweet, tangy ketchup glaze caramelized in the oven. It made the top crispy and delicious. The inside stayed tender and juicy. Mothers bought 2 pounds of ground beef for 80 cents. She mixed it in a large bowl with dried breadcrumbs, finely chopped onion, 1 beaten egg, and half a cup of milk. She added salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. She shaped the mixture into a thick loaf with her hands. She placed it in a greased baking pan. She spread a generous layer of ketchup mixed with brown sugar and yellow mustard across the top. The meatloaf baked at 350 degrees for 1 hour. The kitchen filled with the smell of caramelized ketchup and savory beef. She boiled potatoes until soft. She mashed them with butter and milk until creamy. She served thick slices of meatloaf alongside mashed potatoes and brown gravy. Kids loved the sweet, sticky glaze. Adults praised the tender texture and rich flavor. Mothers loved that meatloaf cost less than $2 and fed 6 people with leftovers for sandwiches the next day. Sunday pot roast with onion gravy, carrots, and potatoes became the meal that defined the 1950s weekend. Every Sunday afternoon, the house smelled like slow-cooked beef, caramelized onions, and roasted vegetables. Families gathered around the table knowing this was the best meal of the week. Mothers bought a 3-pound chuck roast for $2. She seasoned it generously with salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. She heated oil in a heavy Dutch oven. She seared the roast on all sides until deeply browned. She added sliced onions to the pot. She cooked them until soft and golden. She returned the roast to the pot. She added beef broth, bay leaves, and thyme. The roast simmered, covered on low heat, for 2 hours. It became fork tender and flavorful. She added chunks of carrots and potatoes around the roast. Everything cooked together for another hour. She sliced the pot roast thick. She arranged it on a platter surrounded by carrots and potatoes. She poured the rich onion gravy over everything. Kids loved the tender beef that fell apart with a fork. Adults savored the deep, savory flavors. Chicken and dumplings in creamy broth became the Wednesday comfort dinner kids begged for. The tender chicken, fluffy dumplings, and rich, creamy broth warmed them from the inside. Every bite felt like a hug from their mother. Mothers bought a whole chicken for $1.50. She placed it in a large pot with water, chopped onion, celery, carrots, bay leaves, salt, and black pepper. The chicken simmered for 90 minutes until tender. She removed the chicken and let it cool. She pulled the meat into bite-sized pieces. She discarded the bones. She strained the broth and returned it to the pot with the chicken pieces. She brought it to a gentle boil. She mixed flour, baking powder, salt, milk, and melted butter in a bowl. A soft dough formed. She dropped spoonfuls of dough into the bubbling broth. She covered the pot. The dumplings steamed for 15 minutes until fluffy. She stirred in a cup of cream. The broth became rich and velvety. Kids loved the soft, pillowy dumplings. Adults praised the tender chicken and comforting warmth. Before we move on, many of you asked in the comments where to find these recipes. We even received tons of email, too, so we published these recipes on our website. The link is in the description. Let's continue. With crushed potato chips. Tuna noodle casserole with crushed potato chips became the Friday night staple kids actually enjoyed. The crispy, salty potato chip topping added crunch and flavor. The creamy, cheesy casserole underneath made every bite perfect. Mothers bought 2 cans of tuna for 30 cents each. A bag of egg noodles cost 20 cents. She boiled the noodles until tender. She drained them and set them aside. She opened the cans of tuna and drained the water. She mixed the tuna with cooked noodles, cream of mushroom soup, frozen peas, shredded cheddar cheese, milk, salt, and black pepper. She poured everything into a greased casserole dish. She crushed a handful of potato chips and sprinkled them evenly over the top. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 25 minutes. The potato chips turned golden and crispy. The cheese melted and bubbled. Kids loved the crunchy topping and creamy noodles underneath. Adults appreciated the satisfying combination of textures and flavors. Salisbury steak, with mushroom and onion gravy, became the Thursday treat kids mistook for real steak. The rich, savory gravy made the ground beef patties taste fancy and special. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. She mixed it with breadcrumbs, 1 egg, minced onion, Worcestershire sauce, salt, and black pepper. She shaped the mixture into 4 oval patties. She heated oil in a large skillet. She browned the patties on both sides. She removed them and set them aside. She added sliced mushrooms and onions to the same skillet. She cooked them until soft and golden. She stirred in beef broth and a spoonful of flour to thicken the gravy. She returned the patties to the skillet. She spooned the gravy over them. Everything simmered together for 15 minutes. She served the Salisbury steak over mashed potatoes with the mushroom and onion gravy poured on top. Kids loved the rich, meaty flavor. Adults praised the restaurant-quality taste at home. 5 forgotten dinners, each under $2, fed families every week in the 1950s. Meatloaf with ketchup glaze, Sunday pot roast, chicken and dumplings, tuna casserole with crunchy topping, Salisbury steak with rich gravy. Simple ingredients turned into meals kids remember 70 years later. Beef stroganoff with sour cream over egg noodles became the fancy Friday dinner mothers made when company was coming. The creamy sour cream sauce and tender beef made it feel like restaurant food. Mothers bought 1 pound of beef sirloin for $1.20. She sliced it into thin strips. She heated butter in a large skillet. She browned the beef strips quickly. She removed them and set them aside. She added sliced mushrooms and chopped onions to the same skillet. She cooked them until soft. She stirred in beef broth and let it simmer. She added the beef back to the skillet. She stirred in a generous spoonful of sour cream. The sauce became rich and creamy. She boiled egg noodles until tender. She drained them and tossed them with butter. She served the beef stroganoff over the buttered noodles. Kids loved the creamy, savory sauce. Adults praised the tender beef and elegant presentation. Mothers loved that it cost less than $2 but looked expensive. Fried chicken with cream gravy and mashed potatoes became the Sunday supper kids waited for all week. The crispy, golden chicken and rich cream gravy made it the most delicious meal of the 1950s. Mothers bought a whole chicken cut into pieces for $1. She rinsed the chicken under cold water. She patted it dry with paper towels. She seasoned it generously with salt, black pepper, and paprika. She dredged each piece in seasoned flour. She heated oil in a large cast-iron skillet. She fried the chicken pieces for 12 minutes on each side. They turned golden brown and crispy. She drained the chicken on paper towels. She poured off most of the oil. She kept the browned bits in the skillet. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. She slowly added milk while stirring constantly. The gravy thickened and became creamy. She served the fried chicken with mashed potatoes and poured the cream gravy over everything. Kids loved the crispy skin and juicy meat. Chicken pot pie with flaky biscuit crust became the Tuesday comfort meal kids loved because the golden buttery crust covered tender chicken and vegetables in creamy sauce. Mothers bought chicken pieces for 80 cents. She boiled them with onion, celery, and carrots until tender. She pulled the chicken meat into chunks. She discarded the bones. She made a white sauce by melting butter in a pot. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. She slowly added chicken broth and milk while stirring. The sauce thickened. She added the chicken, cooked carrots, peas, and diced potatoes. She poured everything into a greased baking dish. She made biscuit dough with flour, baking powder, salt, butter, and milk. She rolled it flat. She laid it over the chicken mixture. She cut slits in the top. The pot pie baked at 400 degrees for 30 minutes. The crust turned golden and flaky. Kids loved breaking through the crust. Adults praised the creamy filling and buttery biscuit topping. Spaghetti and meatballs with tomato sauce became the Saturday night favorite kids asked for by name. The savory meatballs and rich tomato sauce made it feel like an Italian restaurant at home. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. She mixed it with breadcrumbs, 1 egg, minced garlic, grated Parmesan cheese, salt, and black pepper. She rolled the mixture into small meatballs. She browned them in a skillet. She removed them and set them aside. She opened 2 cans of tomato sauce. She poured the sauce into a pot. She added dried basil, oregano, garlic powder, salt, and a pinch of sugar. She dropped the meatballs into the sauce. Everything simmered together for 30 minutes. She boiled spaghetti until tender. She drained it. She served the spaghetti on plates. She spooned meatballs and sauce over the top. She sprinkled Parmesan cheese on each serving. Kids loved twirling the spaghetti on their forks. Adults praised the rich, savory flavor. Swiss steak with tomato and bell pepper gravy became the Wednesday dinner kids didn't know they loved until they tasted it. The tender beef and tangy tomato gravy made it surprisingly delicious. Mothers bought round steak for 90 cents. She pounded it with a meat mallet until thin. She seasoned it with salt and black pepper. She dredged it in flour. She heated oil in a skillet. She browned the steak on both sides. She removed it and set it aside. She added sliced onions and bell peppers to the skillet. She cooked them until soft. She stirred in canned tomatoes, tomato sauce, Worcestershire sauce, and a bay leaf. She returned the steak to the skillet. She spooned the sauce over it. She covered the skillet. Everything simmered on low heat for 90 minutes. The steak became fork tender. She served it with mashed potatoes. She poured the tomato and bell pepper gravy over everything. Kids loved the tangy, savory flavor. Adults praised the tender texture. 10 childhood dinners, each under $2, filled families with comfort and nostalgia. Beef stroganoff, fried chicken with cream gravy, chicken pot pie, spaghetti and meatballs, Swiss steak. Every meal tasted better than anyone remembers. Simple ingredients created unforgettable flavors that still bring back memories today. Shepherd's pie with ground beef and mashed potato crust became the Monday leftover meal kids didn't realize was made from yesterday's mashed potatoes. The golden, bon crispy potato topping covered savory ground beef and vegetables. Every bite tasted like comfort. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. She heated oil in a large skillet. She browned the ground beef until cooked through. She added diced onions and minced garlic. She cooked them until soft. She stirred in diced carrots and frozen peas. She poured in beef broth and a splash of Worcestershire sauce. She added salt, black pepper, and a pinch of thyme. Everything simmered together for 15 minutes. The vegetables softened and the broth thickened slightly. She poured the beef mixture into a greased baking dish. She spread it evenly across the bottom. She took leftover mashed potatoes from the refrigerator. She warmed them slightly so they would spread easily. She spooned the mashed potatoes over the beef mixture. She spread them carefully to cover every inch. She used a fork to create ridges on top. The ridges would turn golden and crispy in the oven. She dotted the top with small pieces of butter. The dish baked at 375 degrees for 30 minutes. The top turned golden brown and crispy. The beef filling bubbled around the edges. The kitchen smelled like savory beef and buttery potatoes. She served big scoops on plates. Kids loved the crispy potato crust and the way it mixed with the savory beef underneath. Adults praised the hearty, satisfying meal. Mothers loved that shepherd's pie used leftover mashed potatoes and cost less than $1 to make a full dinner that fed 6 people. Beef and egg noodle, casserole with cream of mushroom soup became the Tuesday night one-dish meal mothers loved because everything cooked together in one pan, and cleanup was easy. The creamy mushroom sauce, tender beef, and soft noodles made it a family favorite. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. A bag of egg noodles cost 20 cents. A can of cream of mushroom soup cost 15 cents. She boiled the egg noodles in salted water until tender. She drained them and set them aside. She browned the ground beef in a large skillet. She broke it into small pieces as it cooked. She added diced onions and cooked them until soft. She stirred in the can of cream of mushroom soup. She didn't add water. She poured in half a cup of milk to thin the soup slightly. She added salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. She stirred in the cooked egg noodles. Everything mixed together. She poured the mixture into a greased casserole dish. She sprinkled shredded cheddar cheese on top. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 25 minutes. The cheese melted and turned bubbly and golden. The edges of the noodles got slightly crispy. The kitchen filled with the smell of beef, mushrooms, and melted cheese. She served the casserole straight from the dish. Kids loved the creamy, cheesy noodles and the savory beef. Adults appreciated the simple, satisfying flavor. Mothers loved that beef and noodle casserole cost less than $1, used only one dish, and fed the entire family with leftovers for lunch the next day. Salmon croquettes with creamed peas and carrots became the Friday fish dinner kids actually enjoyed because the crispy, golden croquettes tasted nothing like plain fish. The creamy peas and carrots made the meal colorful and delicious. Mothers bought 1 can of pink salmon for 35 cents. She opened the can and drained the liquid. She removed any bones and skin. She flaked the salmon into a mixing bowl. She added 1 beaten egg, dried breadcrumbs, finely diced onion, salt, black pepper, and a squeeze of lemon juice. She mixed everything together with her hands. The mixture held together when squeezed. She shaped it into small, flat patties about 3 inches wide. She heated oil in a cast-iron skillet. She carefully placed the croquettes in the hot oil. They sizzled immediately. She fried them for 3 minutes on each side. They turned golden brown and crispy. She drained them on paper towels. While the croquettes cooked, she made creamed peas and carrots. She boiled frozen peas and sliced carrots until tender. She drained them. She melted butter in a small pot. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. She slowly added milk while stirring constantly. The sauce thickened into a creamy white sauce. She added the peas and carrots. She stirred everything together. She served the salmon croquettes on plates with a big spoonful of creamed peas and carrots on the side. Kids loved the crispy outside and the mild salmon flavor inside. Adults praised the delicate taste and the colorful presentation. Mothers loved that one can of salmon and a few simple ingredients made a complete dinner for under $1. Creamed chipped beef on toast became the breakfast for dinner meal kids called by its nickname SOS, without knowing what the letters stood for. The creamy white sauce and salty beef over crispy toast made it surprisingly delicious. Mothers bought a small jar of dried chipped beef for 40 cents. The beef came thinly sliced and heavily salted. She opened the jar and rinsed the beef under cold water. This removed some of the excess salt. She patted it dry with paper towels. She tore the beef into small pieces. She melted butter in a large skillet over medium heat. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. The mixture became a thick paste called a roux. She slowly poured in milk while stirring constantly with a whisk. The sauce thickened as it heated. She kept stirring to prevent lumps. She added black pepper and a pinch of garlic powder. She didn't add salt because the chipped beef was already salty. She stirred the torn chipped beef into the creamy sauce. Everything simmered together for 5 minutes. The beef softened and the flavors blended. She toasted slices of white bread until golden. She placed 2 slices of toast on each plate. She ladled the creamed chipped beef over the toast. The sauce soaked into the bread. Kids loved the salty, creamy flavor and the way the toast got soft underneath. Adults appreciated the stick-to-your-ribs heartiness. Mothers loved that creamed chipped beef on toast, cost less than $1, came together in 15 minutes, and fed the whole family a hot, satisfying dinner when there was no time to cook something complicated. American goulash with elbow macaroni and cheddar cheese became the Wednesday night skillet supper kids asked for by name. The cheesy, tomatoey macaroni and savory ground beef cooked together in one pot. Cleanup was easy. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. A box of elbow macaroni cost 15 cents. She browned the ground beef in a large, deep skillet. She broke it into small pieces as it cooked. She added diced onions and minced garlic. She cooked them until soft. She stirred in 2 cans of tomato sauce. She added a can of diced tomatoes with the juice. She poured in 2 cups of water. She added dried basil, dried oregano, salt, black pepper, and a pinch of sugar. The sugar balanced the acidity of the tomatoes. She brought everything to a boil. She stirred in the dry elbow macaroni. She reduced the heat to medium-low. She covered the skillet. The macaroni simmered for 12 minutes. She stirred occasionally to prevent sticking. The macaroni absorbed the liquid and became tender. She turned off the heat. She sprinkled shredded cheddar cheese over the top. She covered the skillet again. The cheese melted from the residual heat. She served the goulash straight from the skillet. Kids loved the cheesy, tomatoey flavor and the soft macaroni. Adults appreciated the hearty one-pot meal. Mothers loved that American goulash, cost less than $1, cooked in 1 skillet, and fed 6 people with minimal cleanup. Leftovers tasted even better the next day, when the flavors had time to blend together overnight. 15 childhood dinners fed families for under $2 each. Shepherd's pie with crispy potatoes, beef and noodle casserole, salmon croquettes, creamed chipped beef on toast, American goulash. Every meal brought comfort and satisfaction. Simple ingredients created rich flavors kids still remember decades later. Stuffed bell peppers with ground beef, rice, and tomato sauce became the Thursday colorful dinner kids thought looked fancy but tasted like home. The tender peppers filled with savory beef and rice made every bite satisfying. Mothers bought 4 large green bell peppers for 30 cents. 1 pound of ground beef cost 40 cents. She cut the tops off the bell peppers. She removed the seeds and membranes inside. She rinsed them under cold water. She placed them upright in a baking dish. She cooked white rice according to package directions. She browned the ground beef in a skillet. She added diced onions and minced garlic. She cooked them until soft. She stirred in cooked rice, 1 can of tomato sauce, salt, black pepper, dried oregano, and a pinch of paprika. Everything mixed together. She spooned the beef and rice mixture into each bell pepper. She filled them generously. She poured the remaining tomato sauce around the peppers in the baking dish. She covered the dish with aluminum foil. The peppers baked at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. The peppers softened and became tender. She removed the foil. She sprinkled shredded cheddar cheese on top of each pepper. She returned the dish to the oven uncovered for 5 minutes. The cheese melted and turned golden. The kitchen smelled like tomatoes, beef, and roasted peppers. She served 1 stuffed pepper per person with a spoonful of tomato sauce from the bottom of the dish. Kids loved the colorful presentation and the way the pepper, beef, and rice all blended together. Adults praised the balanced flavors. Mothers loved that stuffed peppers cost under $1 and looked impressive enough to serve to guests. Chicken a la king with pimentos over buttermilk biscuits became the Friday fancy meal mothers made when they wanted to use leftover chicken in a special way. The creamy sauce with colorful pimentos and vegetables made it look and taste restaurant quality. Mothers used leftover cooked chicken from Sunday dinner. She cut it into bite-sized pieces. She melted butter in a large pot. She added diced celery and sliced mushrooms. She cooked them until soft. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. She slowly poured in chicken broth while stirring constantly. She added milk. The sauce thickened as it heated. She stirred in the chicken pieces, frozen peas, and diced pimentos from a small jar. The pimentos added color and a slightly sweet flavor. She added salt, black pepper, and a pinch of paprika. Everything simmered together for 10 minutes. The flavors blended. While the chicken mixture cooked, she made buttermilk biscuits. She mixed flour, baking powder, salt, butter, and buttermilk into dough. She rolled it out and cut circles with a biscuit cutter. The biscuits baked at 425 degrees for 12 minutes. They turned golden and fluffy. She split the hot biscuits in half. She placed 2 halves on each plate. She ladled the creamy chicken a la king over the biscuits. The sauce soaked into the warm, fluffy biscuits. Kids loved the creamy, colorful mixture and the bright red pimentos. Adults praised the elegant presentation and rich flavor. Mothers loved that chicken a la king used leftovers, cost almost nothing, and looked fancy enough to impress anyone at the dinner table. Swedish meatballs with brown gravy over buttered egg noodles became the Saturday night treat kids loved because the small, tender meatballs and rich, creamy gravy felt like a special occasion meal. Every bite tasted smooth and savory. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. She mixed it with breadcrumbs, 1 beaten egg, finely diced onion, milk, salt, black pepper, ground allspice, and a pinch of nutmeg. The allspice and nutmeg gave the meatballs a unique, slightly sweet flavor. She rolled the mixture into small meatballs about 1 inch wide. She browned them in a large skillet in batches. She turned them carefully so they browned evenly on all sides. She removed them and set them aside. She added butter to the same skillet. She stirred in flour and cooked it until golden. She slowly poured in beef broth while stirring constantly. The gravy thickened. She added a splash of cream to make it rich and smooth. She returned the meatballs to the skillet. She spooned the gravy over them. Everything simmered together for 10 minutes. The meatballs absorbed the gravy flavor. She boiled egg noodles until tender. She drained them and tossed them with butter. She served the buttered noodles on plates. She spooned the Swedish meatballs and gravy on top. Kids loved the tender meatballs and the creamy gravy. Adults praised the unique, subtle spice flavor. Mothers loved that Swedish meatballs felt fancy but cost less than $1 and used simple ingredients everyone already had in the kitchen. Leftovers made great lunches the next day. Beef stew with potatoes, carrots, and drop biscuits became the Sunday slow-cooked comfort meal kids came home to after church. The house smelled like beef, vegetables, and fresh biscuits. Every spoonful warmed them from the inside. Mothers bought stew meat for $1. She cut it into bite-sized cubes. She heated oil in a large pot. She browned the beef cubes on all sides. She removed them and set them aside. She added diced onions and minced garlic to the pot. She cooked them until soft. She returned the beef to the pot. She poured in beef broth and water. She added bay leaves, dried thyme, salt, and black pepper. The stew simmered, covered on low heat, for 90 minutes. The beef became tender. She added chunks of potatoes and sliced carrots. Everything cooked together for another 30 minutes. The vegetables softened. The broth thickened slightly. While the stew finished cooking, she made drop biscuits. She mixed flour, baking powder, salt, butter, and milk into a thick batter. She dropped spoonfuls of batter onto a greased baking sheet. The biscuits baked at 400 degrees for 15 minutes. They turned golden and fluffy. She ladled the hot beef stew into deep bowls. She placed a warm biscuit on the side of each bowl. Kids tore the biscuits apart and dipped them into the rich broth. Adults savored the tender beef and sweet carrots. Mothers loved that beef stew, cost under $2, simmered all afternoon, and filled the house with a delicious smell that made everyone hungry before dinner even started. Turkey, tetrazzini with mushrooms and Parmesan cream sauce became the Monday after Thanksgiving leftover meal. Kids didn't mind eating because the creamy, cheesy casserole tasted nothing like plain, reheated turkey. The golden, bubbly top and rich sauce made it feel like a brand-new dinner. Mothers used leftover turkey from Thanksgiving or Sunday dinner. She cut it into bite-sized pieces. She boiled spaghetti until tender. She drained it and set it aside. She melted butter in a large pot. She added sliced mushrooms and cooked them until soft. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. She slowly poured in chicken broth while stirring constantly. She added heavy cream. The sauce thickened and became rich. She stirred in grated Parmesan cheese. The cheese melted into the sauce. She added the turkey pieces and cooked spaghetti. She mixed everything together. She poured the mixture into a greased casserole dish. She sprinkled more Parmesan cheese and breadcrumbs on top. The casserole baked at 375 degrees for 30 minutes. The top turned golden and crispy. The sauce bubbled around the edges. The kitchen smelled like cheese, mushrooms, and toasted breadcrumbs. She served big scoops on plates. Kids loved the creamy, cheesy noodles and the way the crispy topping added crunch. Adults praised the elegant flavor and the way the Parmesan made everything taste rich. Mothers loved that turkey tetrazzini, used leftover turkey, cost almost nothing, and turned into a casserole that looked and tasted like something from a fancy restaurant. Leftovers reheated beautifully the next day. 20 childhood dinners, each under $2, brought families together every week. Stuffed peppers, chicken a la king, Swedish meatballs, beef stew with biscuits, turkey tetrazzini. Simple ingredients and patient cooking created meals that tasted better than anyone remembers. These dinners defined the 1950s. Liver and onions with bacon and mashed potatoes became the Tuesday night dinner kids dreaded, but mothers insisted on because liver cost only 30 cents per pound and provided more iron than any other meat. Adults who grew up eating liver admit it tasted better than they remembered once they learned the secret. Mothers bought 1 pound of beef liver for 30 cents. The liver came in thin, dark red slices. She brought it home and soaked it in a bowl of milk for at least 1 hour. The milk drew out the strong, metallic taste. After soaking, she drained the liver and patted it dry with paper towels. She seasoned each slice with salt and black pepper. She dredged the liver slices in flour. She cooked 3 strips of bacon in a cast-iron skillet until crispy. She removed the bacon and set it aside. She kept the bacon grease in the skillet. She added the floured liver slices to the hot bacon grease. She cooked them for 2 minutes on each side. The liver browned quickly. Overcooking made it tough and bitter. She removed the liver and kept it warm. She added sliced onions to the same skillet. She cooked them slowly in the bacon grease until they turned soft, golden, and caramelized. The onions became sweet and delicious. She crumbled the crispy bacon. While the onions cooked, she boiled potatoes until soft. She mashed them with butter, milk, salt, and pepper until creamy. She placed a big scoop of mashed potatoes on each plate. She laid 2 slices of liver on top. She spooned the caramelized onions over the liver. She sprinkled crumbled bacon on top. The combination of sweet onions, salty bacon, and creamy potatoes helped balance the strong liver flavor. Kids still wrinkled their noses but ate it because Mother said it would make them strong. Adults who grew up eating liver remember the way the bacon and onions made it tolerable. Some even admit they miss it now. Mothers loved that liver cost only 30 cents and provided essential nutrition during a time when meat was expensive. The secret was soaking it in milk and not overcooking it. When prepared correctly, liver and onions tasted surprisingly good and became a weekly staple in 1950s homes across America. Fish sticks with buttered macaroni and cheese became the Friday night easy dinner kids actually loved because the crispy fish sticks tasted mild and didn't smell fishy like real fish. The creamy macaroni and cheese made it a complete meal mothers could prepare in 20 minutes. Mothers bought a box of frozen fish sticks for 40 cents. A box of macaroni and cheese cost 15 cents. Fish sticks were a new convenience food in the 1950s. They came pre-breaded and frozen. Mothers loved them because kids would eat fish without complaining. She preheated the oven to 400 degrees. She arranged the frozen fish sticks in a single layer on a baking sheet. She didn't add oil. The fish sticks baked for 15 minutes. She flipped them halfway through. They turned golden brown and crispy on the outside. The white fish inside stayed tender and flaky. While the fish sticks baked, she boiled water in a pot. She added elbow macaroni and cooked it until tender. She drained the macaroni and returned it to the pot. She stirred in butter, milk, and the orange cheese powder from the box. The macaroni became creamy and bright orange. Kids loved the artificial cheese flavor. She served 3 fish sticks on each plate with a big scoop of macaroni and cheese on the side. Some mothers added frozen peas to make the meal more balanced. Kids ate the fish sticks with their fingers. They dipped them in ketchup or tartar sauce. They loved the crunchy coating and the mild fish inside. The macaroni and cheese disappeared quickly. Kids often asked for seconds. Adults remember fish sticks as the only fish they would eat as children. The breading hid the fish taste. The shape made it fun to eat. Mothers loved that fish sticks were cheap, quick, and guaranteed to be eaten without complaints. Friday was traditionally a fish day for many Catholic families. The combination became iconic in 1950s households. It represented the rise of convenience foods that made mothers' lives easier. Chicken fricassee with carrots and white rice became the Wednesday elegant dinner mothers made when they wanted to stretch one chicken into a meal for 6 people. The creamy white sauce and tender chicken pieces made it taste fancy, even though it cost less than $2. Mothers bought a whole chicken for $1.50. She cut it into pieces. She rinsed the chicken under cold water and patted it dry. She seasoned each piece with salt, black pepper, cayenne paprika. She heated butter in a large, deep skillet. She browned the chicken pieces on all sides until golden. She removed them and set them aside. She added diced onions, sliced carrots, and sliced celery to the same skillet. She cooked them until soft. The vegetables absorbed the chicken flavor left in the pan. She sprinkled flour over the vegetables. She stirred it for 1 minute. She slowly poured in chicken broth while stirring constantly. She added milk. The sauce thickened as it heated. She returned the browned chicken pieces to the skillet. She spooned the sauce over them. She added bay leaves and dried thyme. She covered the skillet. Everything simmered on low heat for 45 minutes. The chicken became tender. The sauce became rich and creamy. The carrots softened and absorbed the savory flavor. While the fricassee cooked, she prepared white rice. She rinsed 2 cups of long-grain rice under cold water. She placed it in a pot with 4 cups of water and a pinch of salt. She brought it to a boil. She reduced the heat to low and covered the pot. The rice steamed for 18 minutes. She fluffed it with a fork. She served a generous scoop of white rice on each plate. She placed a piece of chicken on top. She spooned the creamy sauce and vegetables over everything. Kids loved the tender chicken and the creamy sauce that soaked into the rice. Adults praised the elegant presentation and the way the vegetables added color and nutrition. Mothers loved that chicken fricassee used 1 chicken and simple ingredients to create a meal that looked expensive. The creamy sauce made even the dark meat. Grilled cheese sandwiches with Campbell's tomato soup became the Saturday lunch for dinner meal kids begged for every week. The crispy, buttery bread and melted cheese paired perfectly with the creamy, sweet tomato soup. Every spoonful and every bite brought pure comfort. Mothers bought a loaf of white bread for 20 cents. A package of American cheese slices cost 30 cents. A can of Campbell's tomato soup cost 12 cents. She opened the can of soup and poured it into a pot. She added 1 can of milk. She stirred it while it heated on the stove. The soup became creamy and smooth. She kept it warm on low heat. She placed a skillet on medium heat. She spread butter on one side of 2 slices of bread. She placed 1 slice butter side down in the skillet. She laid 2 slices of American cheese on top. She placed the second slice of bread on top, butter side up. The sandwich sizzled. The bottom slice turned golden brown. She flipped the sandwich carefully. The other side turned golden brown, too. The cheese melted and became gooey. She pressed the sandwich gently with the spatula. She removed it from the skillet and cut it diagonally. The cheese stretched between the 2 halves. She repeated the process until she had made enough sandwiches for everyone. She ladled the hot tomato soup into bowls. She placed a grilled cheese sandwich on a plate next to each bowl. Kids loved dipping the crispy sandwich into the creamy soup. The combination of crunchy, buttery bread, melted cheese, and sweet tomato soup tasted perfect together. Adults remember grilled cheese and tomato soup as the ultimate comfort meal. The simplicity made it special. Nothing complicated, just bread, cheese, butter, and soup. But somehow it tasted better than anything else. Mothers loved that grilled cheese and tomato soup cost less than $1 total. It came together in 15 minutes. Kids never complained. They always finished their plates and bowls. The meal worked for lunch or dinner. Campbell's tomato soup became iconic in American households because of this pairing. The red and white label became instantly recognizable. Generations of children grew up dipping grilled cheese into soup. Today, adults make the same meal for their own children. The tradition continues. The flavors bring back memories of home. Baked beans with beef. Hot dogs and brown sugar became the Sunday summer dinner families ate at picnics, church gatherings, and backyard barbecues. The sweet, smoky beans and savory hot dogs cooked together in one pot. Every bite tasted like summer and togetherness. Mothers bought 2 cans of pork and beans for 20 cents each. A package of beef hot dogs cost 50 cents. She poured the cans of beans into a baking dish. She stirred in brown sugar, ketchup, yellow mustard, and a splash of Worcestershire sauce. The brown sugar made the beans sweet. The mustard added tang. She cut the hot dogs into bite-sized pieces. She stirred them into the bean mixture. Everything mixed together. She covered the dish with aluminum foil. The beans baked at 325 degrees for 1 hour. The flavors blended together. The sauce thickened. The hot dogs absorbed the sweet, smoky flavor. She removed the foil for the last 15 minutes. The top turned slightly caramelized. The kitchen smelled like sweet beans, smoky sauce, and hot dogs. She served the baked beans in bowls with slices of white bread on the side. Kids loved the sweet beans and the way the hot dog pieces added savory flavor. Adults appreciated the hearty, stick-to-your-ribs satisfaction. Mothers loved that baked beans and hot dogs cost less than $1 and fed the whole family with minimal effort. The dish worked for indoor dinners or outdoor gatherings. It traveled well to potlucks and picnics. It stayed warm for hours. Baked beans and hot dogs became synonymous with American summer traditions. Families ate them at 4th of July cookouts. Churches served them at fundraising dinners. Schools included them in cafeteria lunches. The combination of sweet beans and savory hot dogs appealed to children and adults alike. Nobody complained. Everybody ate seconds. Leftovers reheated perfectly the next day. The beans thickened overnight and tasted even better. Some families ate leftover baked beans for breakfast with eggs and toast. Others made baked bean sandwiches by spreading the thick beans on bread. The versatility made baked beans a staple that never went out of style. Today, baked beans and hot dogs remain a classic comfort food. The recipe hasn't changed. The same simple ingredients create the same sweet, savory flavor. 25 childhood dinners, each under $2, defined the 1950s. Liver and onions, fish sticks and macaroni, chicken fricassee. Grilled cheese with tomato soup, baked beans and hot dogs. Simple ingredients and patient cooking created meals that tasted better than anyone remembers. Corned beef, hash with fried eggs and toast became the Monday breakfast for dinner meal mothers made when she had leftover boiled potatoes and needed to stretch a can of corned beef into a full meal. The crispy hash and runny egg yolks made every bite delicious. Mothers bought 1 can of corned beef for 45 cents. She opened the can and chopped the corned beef into small pieces. She peeled and diced leftover boiled potatoes. If she didn't have leftovers, she boiled fresh potatoes until tender. She diced 1 onion. She heated oil in a large cast-iron skillet. She added the diced potatoes and spread them in an even layer. She let them cook without stirring for 5 minutes. The bottom turned golden and crispy. She stirred them once. She added the chopped corned beef and diced onion. She stirred everything together. She seasoned it with black pepper, garlic powder, and a pinch of salt. The corned beef was already salty. She pressed the mixture down with a spatula. She let it cook undisturbed for another 5 minutes. The bottom became crispy and golden brown. The kitchen smelled like fried potatoes, onions, and savory corned beef. She stirred the hash 1 more time. She made small wells in the mixture. She cracked eggs into each well. She covered the skillet. The eggs cooked for 3 to 4 minutes. The whites set. The yolks stayed runny. While the eggs cooked, she toasted slices of white bread. She buttered the toast while it was still hot. She served the corned beef hash on plates with the fried eggs on top. She placed 2 slices of buttered toast on the side. Kids loved breaking the egg yolks and watching them run into the crispy hash. Adults praised the hearty, satisfying combination of textures and flavors. Mothers loved that corned beef hash, used 1 can of meat, leftover potatoes, and pantry ingredients to create a filling dinner that cost less than $1. The crispy edges and runny eggs made it special. Corned beef hash represented the resourcefulness of 1950s cooking. Mothers wasted nothing. Leftover potatoes became the base for a new meal. One can stretch to feed 6 people when combined with potatoes and eggs. The dish worked for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Nobody left the table hungry. Beef and macaroni skillet with tomato and cheddar became the Tuesday one-pan wonder mothers made when she didn't want to wash multiple pots. Everything cooked together in one skillet. The cheesy, tomatoey macaroni and savory beef satisfied everyone at the table. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. A box of elbow macaroni cost 15 cents. She heated a large, deep skillet on the stove. She browned the ground beef. She broke it into small pieces as it cooked. She added diced onions and minced garlic. She cooked them until soft. She poured in 1 can of tomato sauce. She added 1 can of diced tomatoes with the juice. She stirred in 2 cups of water. She added dried basil, dried oregano, salt, black pepper, and a pinch of sugar. The sugar balanced the acidity. She brought everything to a boil. She stirred in the dry elbow macaroni. She reduced the heat to medium-low. She covered the skillet. The macaroni simmered for 12 minutes. She stirred occasionally to prevent sticking. The macaroni absorbed the liquid and became tender. The sauce thickened. She turned off the heat. She sprinkled shredded cheddar cheese over the top. She covered the skillet again. The cheese melted from the residual heat. She let it sit for 2 minutes. The cheese became gooey and delicious. She served the beef and macaroni skillet straight from the pan. Kids loved the cheesy, tomatoey flavor and the soft macaroni. Adults appreciated the hearty, one-pot meal that required minimal cleanup. Mothers loved that beef and macaroni skillet cost less than $1, cooked in 1 pan, and fed 6 people with leftovers. The leftovers tasted even better after the flavors had time to blend overnight. Beef and macaroni skillet represented the practical cooking style of the 1950s. Mothers cooked meals that were efficient, economical, and delicious. 1 pot meant less cleanup. Simple ingredients meant lower cost. But the flavors were rich and satisfying. Kids cleaned their plates. Adults asked for seconds. Nobody complained. The dish became a weekly staple in many households. It worked for busy weeknights when time was short. It used pantry staples mothers always had on hand. Ground beef, macaroni, tomato sauce, and cheese were kitchen essentials. Today, beef and macaroni skillet remains a nostalgic comfort food. Creamy chicken and rice casserole with celery became the Wednesday easy casserole mothers made when she needed to stretch leftover chicken into a full meal. The creamy sauce, tender rice, and savory chicken baked together into one comforting dish. Mothers used leftover cooked chicken from Sunday dinner. She cut it into bite-sized pieces. She measured 2 cups of uncooked long-grain white rice. She rinsed it under cold water. She placed the rice in a greased casserole dish. She arranged the chicken pieces on top of the rice. She opened 2 cans of cream of chicken soup. She poured them into a bowl. She added 2 cups of chicken broth and 1 cup of milk. She stirred until smooth. She added diced celery, diced onion, salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. She poured the soup mixture over the rice and chicken. She stirred gently to make sure the rice was submerged in liquid. She covered the dish tightly with aluminum foil. The casserole baked at 350 degrees for 1 hour. The rice absorbed the liquid and became tender. The chicken stayed moist. The celery added crunch and flavor. She removed the foil. She stirred the casserole gently. She sprinkled shredded cheddar cheese on top. She returned it to the oven uncovered for 5 minutes. The cheese melted and turned golden. The kitchen smelled like chicken, celery, and melted cheese. She served big scoops on plates. Kids loved the creamy rice and the tender chicken pieces. Adults appreciated the comforting, homey flavor. Mothers loved that creamy chicken and rice casserole used leftover chicken, pantry ingredients, and 1 dish. It cost almost nothing. It fed 6 people. Cleanup was easy. The casserole traveled well to potlucks and church suppers. It stayed warm for hours. Leftovers reheated beautifully. The flavors deepened overnight. Creamy chicken and rice casserole represented the economy and practicality of 1950s cooking. Mothers made delicious meals from leftovers and pantry staples. Nothing went to waste. Every ingredient served a purpose. The result was a comforting, satisfying dinner that brought the family together. Today, adults make the same casserole. Porcupine meatballs with rice and tomato sauce became the Thursday fun dinner kids loved because the rice stuck out of the meatballs and looked like porcupine quills. The tender meatballs and tangy tomato sauce made it delicious and playful. Mothers bought 1 pound of ground beef for 40 cents. She placed it in a large mixing bowl. She added uncooked white rice, 1 beaten egg, diced onion, salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. She mixed everything together with her hands. The uncooked rice made the mixture slightly grainy. She rolled the mixture into small meatballs about 1½ inches wide. The rice grains poked out from the surface. She placed the meatballs in a large, deep skillet. She poured 2 cans of tomato sauce over the meatballs. She added 1 can of water. She stirred in dried basil, dried oregano, and a pinch of sugar. The sugar balanced the acidity of the tomatoes. She brought the sauce to a gentle boil. She reduced the heat to low. She covered the skillet. The meatballs simmered for 45 minutes. The rice inside the meatballs cooked and expanded. The rice grains that stuck out became soft and absorbed the tomato sauce flavor. The meatballs became tender. The sauce thickened. The kitchen smelled like tomatoes, garlic, and savory beef. She served the porcupine meatballs on plates with a generous spoonful of tomato sauce. Kids loved the playful name and the way the rice looked like quills. They ate the meatballs with forks. They mopped up the sauce with slices of white bread. Tuna and noodle skillet, supper with peas and cream sauce, became the Friday quick dinner mothers made when there was no time to cook something complicated. The creamy sauce, tender noodles, and mild tuna came together in 1 skillet. Cleanup was easy. Mothers bought 2 cans of tuna for 30 cents each. A bag of egg noodles cost 20 cents. She boiled the egg noodles in salted water until tender. She drained them and set them aside. She melted butter in a large skillet. She stirred in flour and cooked it for 1 minute. She slowly poured in milk while stirring constantly. The sauce thickened. She added salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. She opened the cans of tuna and drained the water. She flaked the tuna with a fork. She stirred the tuna into the cream sauce. She added frozen peas. She stirred in the cooked egg noodles. Everything mixed together. The sauce coated the noodles and tuna. These 30 forgotten childhood dinners fed families every night in the 1950s. Meatloaf with ketchup glaze, Sunday pot roast, chicken and dumplings, tuna casserole, Salisbury steak. Every meal cost less than $2. Every dish brought families together around the table. Mothers cooked with simple ingredients and endless love. Kids cleaned their plates and asked for seconds. Adults still remember the rich, savory flavors and the warmth of home. These dinners tasted better than anyone remembers. The creamy sauces, the crispy toppings, the tender meat, the comforting smells that filled the kitchen. Simple ingredients created unforgettable meals that defined an entire generation. If these childhood dinners brought back memories of your grandmother's kitchen or made you hungry for simpler times, share this story right now. Comment below with the dinner your family ate every week in the 1950s. Which meal do you miss the most? Tell us your story. Keep these memories alive. Don't let them disappear. Share this with someone who remembers.